Hello out there, and I wanted to make a little video today about budget knives and what constitutes a budget knife, because I saw something the other day that was a little bit confusing to me and sort of threw me for a loop when it comes to what people define a budget knife as. And I'll get into that in just a minute, but I'm going to start just by going through what I think a budget knife is. And for me, it's simple. I know some people look at it like materials. Some people look at it as a mixture of materials and price. For me, it's just price. For me, a budget knife, if you haven't heard this from me already, a budget knife is a knife that is $30 or less. That doesn't mean anything over $30 is not economical. There are plenty of knives that are cheaper and more affordable and that sort of thing that are over $30. But when I'm really talking about budget knives, I'm looking at knives that are $30 or less and give you bang for their buck, at that price. That's what I'm looking for. And the reason that I look at a budget knife at $30 is because I'm trying to understand how non-knife guys would look at a knife and what would be in their budget. Because when I started with knives, I was getting into Gerbers, and most of the Gerbers, and I don't really have any on the table today, but most of the Gerbers, and actually the early Kershaws I was picking up for that matter, they were in like the $20 to $25 range. Some of the Gerbers were sub 20 bucks, and I wasn't a knife guy yet. I was just a guy who liked knives, and I wanted to get as many as I could, but I also just wanted something that was going to be all purpose for EDC. Didn't need to spend a ton of money. Didn't understand that there was a whole world out there where like knives could be super expensive and could be really high end. I couldn't even wrap my brain around that at the time. And so when I think about what a budget knife is, I'm thinking about that person who isn't really a member of the community, isn't a collector. Like, what would they be willing to spend on a knife? What would be reasonable for the non-knife person? And again, I still stick with $30 because you can still get some very good knives at that price point. And it just seemed like the most reasonable price point to stick to, even with inflation, even with the fact that, knives are becoming possibly more expensive and companies are raising their prices. You're still getting, over the course of a year, pretty decent knives. This is the CRKT Pete for less than 30 bucks. So I'm sticking with $30 as my price range. Now, some people might look at it as something a little bit different. And if you have a knife that's in lesser materials, like just 8CR, if they charge, $40 or $50 for it, and let me grab the CRKT Inara is another example. So maybe you'd look at this as a budget knife just because it has budget materials. It is a $40 knife, so it wouldn't really fit my criteria for being a budget knife, but for a lot of you it would. And some of you probably have that price range a little bit higher than $30. I understand that. A lot of people said it at $50. I get it with the way that prices have raised. Okay, I can say that makes sense. But what I can't say is that a budget knife for me is ever going to be $100. And the reason why I wanted to make this video today was to get your feedback about it. Because I saw something online the other day that was just super confusing. And it was on Blade HQ's Instagram, and they were listing the top 10, I think, Spyderco knives that are budget priced. The top 10 budget Spydercos. And I was like, okay, well, I can't think of 10 of them. I can't even think of 10 budget Spydercos. And what I have right here is the most inexpensive Spyderco that's come out in a while. This is the Astute, the new for 2021. And yeah, I really, really like this knife. But it's a $40-something knife. And, this is an aftermarket clip. So don't think that if you buy one, you're going to get this on it. But this is a $40-something knife. Doesn't fit the budget range for me, but Spyderco doesn't call it a budget knife. They call it part of their economy line. And to me, that makes sense. They're not going to really give you anything sub $30 unless it's that really like little honeybee kind of thing. Or I think some of the Bird line is still sub $30, but not many of them. But again, they're calling this an economy line knife, not a budget knife. Blade HQ, on the other hand, in their post, they were talking about knives like the Manix 2 being a budget knife, and the lightweight Chaparral being a budget knife. And man, that just doesn't make sense to me, guys. It just doesn't make sense to me. $101 is what they have the Manix 2 lightweight as. And that's a great knife. And honestly, I think it's a pretty good knife for the price because I've had one. I really liked it. USA made, all that stuff. Now, that said, when I bought mine, I think it was like $60 or $70. So the price on that has definitely gone up. But is that a budget knife? And was it a budget knife at $60 to $70? I don't know. Like, what's your budget, I guess, is sort of what's going to decide that for you. You know, but if you're going to say that the Manix 2 lightweight at $101 is a budget knife, then you're going to say the mini grip is a budget knife too. And if the mini grip's a budget knife, then you're going to say like the mini freak is a budget knife. And then like, where does that end? You know, where does that end with like what a budget knife actually is? And how much money are we expected to to put towards knives all the time and still call it a budget knife? I don't know. I just want to get your ideas here and understand what your expectations are. And let's have that conversation and let's get a little bit of feedback about it. Because for me, you know, the knives that are on the table, we have the Kershaw Airlock, which is a great example of a budget knife for me because this is in the $20 range, maybe $22 now. You know, this is the essential type of budget knife for me. You know, is it a good knife for a collector who wants something high end? No, but it's called a budget knife. You know, it's part of their budget line. So of course, it's their starter series. And the word starter makes a lot of sense. Maybe it's a knife for someone who's starting out, getting into the hobby. You can get a bunch of designs for a pretty good price range, and then maybe hop into something a little bit nicer from them, like this Launch 11, which, you know, is a very similar design, but a price point of around $100. Not a budget knife. You know, but for me, looking at the knives on the table here, yeah, we have a budget knife in the QSP. Doesn't matter what the materials are. It's a budget knife because of the price. That's my take on it, guys, and that's sort of the way that I look at it. The SRM knives that I've talked about, and this one, which I'll be reviewing very soon, again, another budget knife. But I don't know, man, $100 for a budget knife? That just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I'd really like to get your feedback on it. Let's have that conversation in the comments, and let's talk about, you know, what really constitutes a budget knife for you. And let's see if I'm looking at it the wrong way, or if, as I expect, Blade HQ is just completely off the mark here. And they do some really good things, and they can have some good prices and some decent sales now and then, and I appreciate a lot of the things that they do, but man, I think they were really off the mark just by calling it that. And I don't know, if I was new to knives and I saw that they were calling that a budget knife, well, if a $100 Manix 2 is a budget knife, then what do you call this $55 Kershaw NORAD in D2? You know? And if that's a budget knife and then you don't know what this is, then what do you call this at $23? Extreme budget, super budget, ridiculous budget, you know, and you can just keep going down the line. So it's really good to have inexpensive stuff. It's really good that we're in a market now where we're getting better quality for the price, even though prices are slowly going up for some of these knives. Just generally speaking, the competition is really good, and so the prices for some of the good materials that we're getting are going down. But man, I don't know. I still stick to that $30. So let me know, guys. Let me know if I'm wrong here or if there's another way of looking at it, and let me know how you look at it, and let's have that conversation. All right. Any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions? Let me know down below. What is your budget price range, or what constitutes, whether it's materials or that price, a budget knife? And most of all, what's your favorite budget knife of all time? Let me know that as well. All right. Thanks again for watching. I will talk with you soon. Take care and have a good one.